Yo, yo! Welcome back to the writing block. If you are new to the channel, make sure you like the video and hit that subscribe button so that you can become a member of our community of writers here. And if you are a returning viewer of the channel, welcome back. I am super excited that you are here today. And so today we do have a kind of special video in store in that we're not doing kind of the standard weekly update or monthly update, and instead we're going to be talking a little bit about my writing goals going into 2025. And so just for a little bit of background for those of you that are new to the channel, I'm somebody who's actually new to writing. So by training, I am an experimental psychologist and I work at a university and I do psychological based research. And so the majority of my experience writing had to do with like writing scientific articles, writing up experiments, so on and so forth, and publishing in like peer-reviewed journal articles. However, over the past few years, I've become a larger and larger fan of fiction writing. So for example, I've read a lot of fantasy recently, some sci-fi, a lot of thrillers, a little bit of horror even. And I just kind of fell in love with the genre of fiction. And that was also kind of developing simultaneously with my passion for writing. So I really did enjoy writing scientific articles. However, essentially I got to a point where I don't always have something to work on, right? You can only write with data that you have, and we don't always have data to be submitting for publication. And so I kind of wanted to take a leap of faith going into 2025 and devote myself to working on my skills as a fiction writer. And so that is kind of the background for why I started the channel, and also will be kind of just, guiding my intentions as we move into 2025. And so looking ahead, essentially, I'm hoping to move through 4 different quarters for the year. And so the end goal by the end of 2025 is for me to have my first novel written. Being somebody who is incredibly new to this area, I already know that the book or the novel is going to be very subpar, but that's okay. I'm kind of viewing that as a part of the process, and not so much worrying about the final product and if it's going to be good or not, but rather just doing this for the enjoyment of writing, and then hopefully being able to provide everyone on the channel with weekly updates, monthly updates, just so that I'm holding myself accountable. Others can chime in, give their perspectives on things that I should be doing to improve my writing, things I should be doing to improve my process in general, just because I think that that's something that could be really useful to a lot of different people. And so for these 4 different quarters, the very first one is going to be just focusing on building the foundations. And so this really is going to revolve around writing every single day. Right now, for the past month, I've been writing about 5 to 6 times a week for about 30 minutes at a time. And that is something that I'm going to stick to heading into the new year, just because I know that this still is a new habit for me, and motivation with writing is going to go up and down, right? I know that there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days where I don't feel like writing at all and I'm having existential crisis on why I'm doing this. And so I'm trying to set that barrier incredibly low. That being said, I do aim to write about 2,000 words per week. And that number was based off of kind of my previous writing process the past few weeks, where essentially I've kind of averaged out my totals, and what it equated to was about 650 to 700 words per writing session. And so doing that 5 times a week, hopefully I can get anywhere from I think I said 2,000, but I think doing the math in my head, it's a little bit closer to around that 3,000 to 5,000 1,000 word range. And I think that that's going to set me up well in that with those writing sessions, I'm just going to be focusing on writing scenes, right? So building up my skills related to character development, right? How do you make different characters on the page really feel like different people? Working on dialogue, which is something early on in my writing journey that I've already found to be incredibly difficult. And then also working on not only my world building, so making a distinct world out of thin air essentially, but then also working on kind of my plot, if you will, like plots for given stories. Just because one thing I have already noticed as well is that I'm not somebody who can just be a free writer, and instead I kind of like to know where I'm going with my journey, with my writing. And so just getting better at, identifying, where I'm trying to go at the start of my writing session, and then being able to create characters, captivating characters in an interesting world that ultimately get there, right, and reach that resolution. And so during that process, the primary aim for the first quarter is just going to be to write consistently. A few other things that I will be doing during that first quarter is I'm going to be taking a writing class, believe it or not, and stay tuned for that. I will have another video specifically devoted to that writing class, but that's just to get a little bit of formal training related to kind of fiction writing in general. I'm somebody who I already know that my use of the English language isn't great. That's one thing you'll notice about like scientific writing in general is a lot of times, they're published in scientific journals, but the grammar is not always the best. And oftentimes we pick up bad habits that we kind of get away with in the scientific journals. And so I think that that's going to be something that's just going to help me kind of refine my craft, if you will, as well as kind of learning, right, from an instructor who's experienced in this area, what it is to write in the field of fiction. And I'm sure that that's going to be very eye-opening, and I'm actually looking forward to sharing my experience of that class with you all. And I do intend to share a lot of like the materials and the teachings from those courses or from that class online with you all, just so that if you all are on your own kind of writing journey, that those are available to you, and that we're not, safeguarding any of the, top secret knowledge that these universities have nowadays. And then the last thing that I'll be doing to kind of build up my chops in this area is to be just continue reading in the kind of fantasy area, science fic or sci-fi, genre. I don't really have like a hard goal there. I think I'm gonna shoot for one chapter a day. That's something that's pretty manageable for me. Just in terms of balancing writing as my new hobby, and then also being able to balance, my full-time job as well as other obligations that we all have in life. And so that will be the first quarter of next year. And then I would say about April, I'm going to be transitioning into the outlining phase. And so this is the phase that I'm kind of most excited for, just because I am somebody who really loves outlining. I like just the process of it, as well as kind of the experience of starting something new and the excitement that comes along with that. And so that will be outlining my first novel. And in fact, I actually just thought of an idea this week for that novel. I'm not going to hold myself to it just because I am so new to the writing process, and something could come up later that I think is a better idea. So I'm not going to share that with y'all right now, but just know that I do have something brewing. And so with the outlining phase, not only am I going to be kind of outlining the various acts, the acts within the story and the plot line, making sure that everything kind of makes sense, right, and the journey is satisfying at the kind of end of the conclusion. But I'm also going to be working a lot on like character sketches, so spending a lot of time during my writing sessions writing out the different characters that are going to be taking place in my story. And I'm going to be working on kind of like what they look like, what they wear, do they have an accent, kind of all the kind of unique idiosyncrasies of the characters, as well as, you know, just who they are, right? What is their background? What is their motivation? And just kind of really digging deep and exploring these various characters, so that, you know, they're not just bland, they don't come off as flat. All the side characters aren't, you know, basically the exact same person, right? So I want to have kind of a variety of folks with a variety of different motivations and goals, as well as character arcs throughout the story. And so working on probably, I would say, up to 10 of those different character sketches, knowing that more will arise as I kind of go through the story, but just really being able to go into the story with the 10 main characters of that novel be really well defined, just so that when I'm writing, you know, them moving through a city or interacting with other characters, I'm really able to pin down, you know, what aspect of their experience are they contributing to this scene, and then really being able to lean into that as a part of the story. The last thing that I will be working on during the outlining phase is the world in which the characters are going to be living in, residing in, where all of this is going to be taking place. This is kind of the piece of this particular quarter that is probably the scariest for me, and that I have noticed, you know, in describing, you know, various cities that I've thought of in my head, or various lands. It's something that's kind of difficult for me, and I've noticed too, right, having read like epic fantasy and then switching over into, you know, more fast-paced stories, that sometimes I do like naturally want more world building in my story. And I'm not saying that this is going to be like this huge world building info dump kind of thing, but I do want it to be something that folks are able to visualize as they're reading the story. I want it to be something that feels alive and feels real, even though it is kind of a fantasy novel. And so just kind of going through that process, I don't really know how that's going to go, working on, you know, the various lands, the various countries, what the buildings look like, the politics, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, so that's something that more to come on that, as you probably know. And then the other thing, the last thing I'll note here is, during this outlining phase, I'm actually going to attempt to increase my the amount of time that I'm writing per day up to an hour. So, or my writing sessions are going to be an hour, and I'm going to keep that at about 5 to 6 times a week, time permitting. And then so moving into the third quarter of next year, and this is going to be actually writing the novel. So at this point, I will have an outline for the novel, and basically the majority of my writing time is just going to be writing this story. I'm going to work really, really hard on not going back and trying to edit and, you know, refine and play with words in previous chapters during my writing sessions, which I already know is going to be incredibly difficult for me, just because I'm somebody who does really, really, really like to edit as I go. I'm somebody who will, right, in writing for my job, I will sit there until the first sentence is polished exactly how I want it, and oftentimes that will lead to me not getting as much writing done as before. However, going into this as, you know, a complete novice, right, I kind of have the benefit of already knowing that the story's gonna be leaving a little bit to be desired, perhaps. And so I'm really just gonna go into that trusting the process, where I'm just gonna go into my writing sessions, I'm gonna focus on writing the story. And I'm not gonna worry about tying up the loose ends or making sure I have this particular adjective that's just right for this particular scene until the fourth quarter, not to get too far ahead of myself, which is going to be the editing phase. In the writing phase, I'm also going to up my kind of writing time from anywhere to 12 to 15 hours per week. And so I am going to be devoting a considerable amount of time to actually just writing up my story. And that's just because I want to make sure that I am able to finish the story by the time I get to the fourth quarter, just because I do feel very strongly in that, just getting something on the page as somebody who's totally new to this is probably going to be the most beneficial aspect of this. There's always going to be things where that I can go back and fix and refine, basically until forever. And so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to get the words on the page. The other thing too with this is, as I'm writing this is all, and outlining, I should say, this is all going to be publicly available. So I'm going to have a link in the description down below that's going to have a publicly accessible Google Doc, so that you can kind of, just see what I've been writing about, what I've been thinking about, as well as the progress that I have made. As well as the progress I've made on the story. And I will be sure to update you all with my weekly updates about kind of the roadblocks that I have encountered and the difficulties that come with writing one's first novel. Given it's my very first one, I anticipate some challenges that I don't even know exist yet. And so that should be fun. And so look forward to those. And then the last phase here, just very briefly, because I know I have kind of talked quite a bit here, is going to be devoted to the editing stage. And so with my writing time during the fourth quarter of this year, I'm just going to be going back through the chapters that I've already written and attempting to edit what I write. Another thing I may do here is I might actually reach out to like other people who are more experienced in this area and ask them for feedback on my writing. I may even, if we have like a little community here of writers, I would love to get y'all's feedback on the story and just kind of, take some tips and tricks on how to make it better for the next time. And I'm also aware of like online subscriptions where you can kind of subscribe and then you can get other people to read your chapters and then they'll give you feedback. And so those are all going to be kind of tools or strategies that I'm going to utilize during the editing phase, so that I can, get better at writing. Because because a lot of times people will talk about the writing process as almost being just as important, if not more important, than the actual writing process. And so learning how to edit your own work and not edit in a manner that you're just spinning your wheels and wasting your time and never actually gaining any traction is going to be something that I'm also learning as kind of a new writer in this area. And so that is kind of my broad plan for 2025. It is very exciting. I'm looking forward to kind of sharing it with all of you, experiencing it with all of you. If you have any goals headed into 2025 related to writing, or even not related to writing, throw them down in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And with that being said, happy writing.